The real treasure was the content we made along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Books, 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 books.
Hello and welcome to Didn't Read It, the podcast that is giving you a magical holiday if it's the last thing it does.
God damn it.
I am your host, Grace Todd, and with me this week is beloved pal of the pod, Leigh.
Woo woo.
Hey, Leigh.
Yay, yay.
How you doing?
Hi, I'm great. I'm merry and
Bright?
bright. And, festive.
Good.
And jingly. Jangly.
How's your holiday season going?
It is. Well, you know what? I'm here with my friend.
That's something.
Yeah.
It's a thing that we have.
How is yours going, Grace?
Fine. I learned a very valuable lesson recently about mandolin slicer safety.
Oh. Yeah. Actually,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I acted surprised. I knew that happened. I didn't know what you were going to say. I thought you were going to go into like a whole, I learned a valuable lesson because 3 ghosts visited me at midnight last night or something.
Well,
I can see the bandage on your finger.
It was the damnedest thing because so I went to the patient first and they put me back together and I'm sure they'll send me a bill for $83,000.
Yeah.
And that night, 3 ghosts came to me and gave me a presentation about mandolin safety.
Yeah.
I think there had been a scheduling fuck up.
Yeah. Those ghosts are busy.
They were a day behind.
Okay.
Unfortunately for me and the tip of my finger.
You almost, this was almost avoided, but like it's not your fault.
It was almost.
You didn't get the presentation.
Yeah, it was almost a Christmas miracle.
Yeah.
But they're clearly having some kind of administrative issue.
Yeah.
Calendar's all fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who else is going to be maimed because the ghosts do not arrive in time.
'Tis the season. I'm sorry about your fingy.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. It's
But
a Christmas sacrifice, really.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a Nightwell sacrifice. It's
Now
a
you
blood
will
sacrifice to
have-
the
yeah.
old gods.
Now we'll have a good Nightwell.
But it got me thinking.
You know who else made a blood sacrifice?
Back to my youth pastor ways. You know who else bled on Christmas?
Yeah.
The mother of Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And more specifically, I've been thinking a lot about the sort of like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation wavelength of the holiday season, the overstimulated, underappreciated parents,
Yeah.
and especially the moms.
Oh, yeah. His wife is hot.
His wife is hot. His wife is also like barely holding it together for that entire movie.
I haven't seen it in a really long time.
There's a classic scene where all of the in-laws have just arrived and she is being berated by one of her children because they have to share a room, and her mother and her mother-in-law are both like at her throat for various, perceived shortcomings.
Yeah.
And she fishes a pack of cigarettes off of like the top of the fridge and just lights one in the kitchen
Nice. It was the 80s.
and says something to the effect of like, "It's Christmas." And then you hear one of the mothers or mothers-in-law way in the distance going, "Are you smoking again?"
So we're finding that more relatable than previous years, perhaps.
It's just something I'm thinking
2024.
about, I
Okay.
think, because
Yeah.
like my whoopsie brought it to mind because there's going to be a lot of stressed out moms specifically handling chef's knives,
Yeah.
for example.
Are you saying don't make them angry because they'll stab you?
I think that might be part of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so my one question for you before we sort of get to getting is like,
I'm not going to stab my mom. Don't worry about me.
My question is like, what was the dynamic in your household growing up? Like, was mom moving heaven and earth, and did she feel underappreciated? Or was it, was it a little more equitable?
I don't know. Christmas was lovely in my house growing up. Loved Christmas season. And we always had like decorations and stuff. And the thing is, my mom kind of works hard at everything. She's just a through and through like New Englander who, I don't know, just that good Protestant work ethic and just get it done and don't complain. And so probably, but she sure bottled it up.
New England.
What about it?
It's full of people who are bottling up their feelings.
Oh, yeah. What about your house? Do you want to talk about your house or no?
I mean, very good Protestant work ethic on the one side, very English on the other. A lot of people, a lot of women doing everything.
Yeah.
And being recognized for it to varying degrees.
Yeah.
And, I'd say like probably a lot of households, every couple of years you have an off year, and the underappreciated matriarch maybe gets a little...
I'm not doing it this year.
Not so much that, but just, I feel like one of those things that happened to me as a kid, that I feel like probably happens to a fair number of people as a kid, is you reach a tipping point where you get just old enough that you catch one of your mom or your grandma in like a little moment of like white hot unadulterated rage. And it's there so briefly. It's like a match, a match is lit and then extinguished, and it's blink and you'll miss it. And you're like,
spark.
Oh.
Yeah.
All of this seasonal joy is contingent on this person's willingness to make all of it happen.
Hence the bottling.
So much bottling. You got to bottle your eggnog and your rage.
Ooh.
Don't
Delicious.
mix up the rage and the eggnog.
This is why I can't have kids, because the white hot rage would not be a moment. It would just kind of be the default. And that's sad.
And I don't think it's confined to moms, but moms are a really good example of underappreciated, ostensibly beloved family members.
Yeah.
Who make all the things happen.
I mean, if any Mrs. Griswolds out there want a totally platonic back massage or something, foot rub, just hit me up.
This podcast is here for you. And if you are the underappreciated matriarch and you are listening to this podcast while you are washing dishes or wrapping gifts or making lists of things that the other people in your family would never remember to do on their own, we appreciate you.
Oh, yeah.
We admire you.
Go get your refrigerator cigarettes.
You deserve a treat.
You deserve one.
And this story is for you specifically.
Ooh.
Because I have brought you a story.
Okay.
By Maeve Binche.
That is a name. Can you do the rest of this in an Irish accent?
I will absolutely not be doing that.
It's so soothing, though.
So I have brought you a short story called This Year It Will Be Different by Maeve Binche.
Okay.
This is going to be hands down the most contemporary piece we have done on the podcast by a mile, and probably the most contemporary thing we will do for quite a while. Because this story was published first in 1996.
Oh.
And Maeve has since sadly passed away. She's no longer with us.
Rest in peace.
She was an incredibly popular, very successful Irish novelist. And one of the reasons I chose this story is that despite the sort of one piece of technology that the whole story hinges on, it feels, unfortunately, timeless.
I mean, the title alone is real relatable. Can I say something about the car alarm?
Please.
Just that, well, can I just acknowledge that there's a car alarm going off? So what the listeners might not be hearing is that we have to keep stopping, and Grace is losing her mind. It's unfortunately very funny to me.
I'm channeling a frustrated mother.
Yeah.
Trying to like get her progeny to pose for a nice photo or something. And every time you think everyone is all in frame, one kid loses it.
Kid sneezes or cries or something.
So,
back to Binchy.
Back to Maeve.
Great name.
And I thought, amidst the usual didn't read it fare of ghost stories and dead Santa daddies, which I said, as I said in the last episode, is something that I kind of do in part because it's a little something for those of us who maybe need something to emotionally round out the ultra saccharine holiday fare that you find elsewhere.
Yeah.
I thought it would be nice to do a small shout out in the form of a story for the people who are trying desperately to hold a dysfunctional family together.
Oof.
Like one of those families that's not so dysfunctional that it needs to be sort of rent asunder.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
People who maybe mean well, but are like emotionally lazy.
Yeah. Man, what an insult. Emotionally lazy. In 2024? Ooh. That means something. That's shots fired.
That's true. That's harsh.
Yeah.
And so this story is for all of us, anyone out there who needs a break.
Yeah.
And may or may not be acknowledged.
I think a lot of people probably need a break.
I think a lot of people need a break. I think a lot of people just need to be acknowledged for the things that they do.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that even in this era of hypertherapy speak, a lot of us still haven't actually gotten any closer to just genuinely acknowledging and taking care of each other. We just replaced all of that work with buzzwords.
Well, therapy speak is real easy to do. Therapy speak is easier than therapy do. Therapy act.
Got the therapy vocabulary, but none of the actions.
Yeah.
Ethel wondered if it had anything to do with her name. Apart from Ethel Merman, there didn't seem to be many racy Ethels. She didn't know any Ethels who took charge of their own lives. At school, there had been 2 other Ethels. One was a nun in the third world, which was a choice, of course, but not a racy choice. The other was a gray sort of person. She had been gray as a teenager, and she was even grayer in her 40s. She worked as a minder to a selfish personality. She described the work as Girl Friday. It was, in fact, Dog's Body, which scanned perfectly, and, after all, words mean what you want them to mean. These were no role models, Ethel told herself. But anyway, if it weren't a question of having a meek name, a woman couldn't change overnight. Only in movies did a happily married mother of 3 suddenly call a family conference and say that this year she was tired of the whole thing, weary of coming home after work and cleaning the house and buying the Christmas decorations and putting them up, buying the Christmas cards, writing them and posting them so that they would keep the few friends they had. Only in a film would Ethel say that she had had it up to here with Christmas countdowns and timing the brandy butter and the chestnut stuffing and the bacon rolls. So Ethel is hitting a bit of a wall this Christmas.
Yeah, I just reminded myself that this takes place in the 90s. Important to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I, like I said, one of the things I find interesting about it is that it feels very vintage.
Yeah.
And so poor Ethel, who it says had once loved cooking, who had delighted in her family's looking up at her hopefully waiting to be fed, now loathed the thought of what the rest of the world seemed to regard as the whole meaning of Christmas.
Oh. Bah humbug. Yeah. She's tired.
She's tired. But she says that she can't put on a big scene.
Why not?
Well...
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
Has she considered putting on a big scene?
What about putting on a big scene?
Ethel, think about it.
But what Ethel says is, what was the point of ruining everyone else's Christmas by a lecture on how selfish they all were?
All right, yeah.
If her husband never did a hand's turn in the kitchen, then some of the blame was surely Ethel's. From the very beginning, she should have expected that he would share the meal preparation with her, assumed it, stood smiling, and waited for him to help. But 25 years ago, women didn't do that. Young women whooshed their husbands back to the fire in the evening newspaper. They were all mini superwomen then. It wasn't fair to move the goalposts in middle age.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on
I don't have a lot of commentary. I'm just like, ugh. Oh, boy.
What are your thoughts on Ethel so far?
Do you want me to like verbalize them into words, or can I just keep making noises?
I mean, it's, you know what? It's the holiday season. You do whatever you want.
I feel for Ethel. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't want to be a broken record, but it just seems very relatable. The whole thing about like not moving the goalposts in middle age. I get where I don't know. I feel for her. I get where she's coming from. You know, it's just like, it just feels too late.
Yeah.
You know, to like.
You're like, well, I've lived in this dynamic for literal decades.
It's kind of like a you can't teach an old dog new tricks mindset in which your life partner and spouse is an old dog.
Yes. And Ethel also has 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter.
Do we know how old they are?
They all still live at home, but they are all sort of either at university or working.
Okay.
And they are, so this is Ireland in 1997.
Right, Ireland, right.
They are, I think this is, to the contemporary listener, depending on where you live, this might sound a little different, but basically it's very normal for them to still be at home. They're all saving up for deposits for when they can like launch their lives. But she notes that she's very lucky and that everyone envies her for having 2 strong, handsome sons around the house who live with her from choice, and that she can't hold it against her children that they don't help as much as they could, because she's always told them to focus on their studies. Yeah. Right?
I think this is a very common dynamic.
Yes. And it points out, too, that she's so lucky that her daughter isn't... she says other women with 19-year-old daughters are, you know, constantly being badgered by their daughters because they want to move out and go live in bedsits and communes and be racy. And,
ooh,
you know, Ethel's lucky because her daughter is
a loser
at home. Being a loser.
Her daughter's a nerd.
And so, you know, it says that Ethel would be the first to say she had got more than her fair share of good fortune. Until this year.
Oh.
This year, she felt she was put upon. If she saw one more picture of a 47-year-old woman smiling at her out of a magazine with the body of an 18-year-old, gleaming skin, 56 white, even teeth, and shiny hair, Ethel was going to go after her with a carving knife.
Yeah.
And essentially it says that this year, not only is she not looking forward to Christmas, but that she has made a calculation and balanced the thought, the work, the worry, the bone-aching tiredness against the pleasure of her family. Mm-hmm. And they do not even begin to balance.
No. I mean, after that many years. Are they, do we assume that they're Catholic?
Unclear.
Okay. Are they like more well off, or like middle, higher, lower income?
I'd say like middle to low.
Okay. I'm just trying to paint the picture.
Yeah. So she and her husband are both working.
Oh, she works too.
She works too.
Oh, she works too.
Oh, she works too.
Funny.
So she decides it just isn't worth it.
No, she has a fucking job.
It says she didn't do anything dramatic. She didn't do anything at all.
Hell yeah.
She bought no tree. She mended no fairy lights. she sent 6 cards to people who really needed cards.
Mm-hmm.
There were no lists, no excursions for late night shopping. She came home after work, made the supper, cleared it away, washed up, and sat down and looked at the television.
Good.
Eventually, they noticed.
They're like, that's weird. It's like December 13th.
And it starts with her husband asking her when she's going to go buy the tree. Which to me, even in like a hyper-gendered household, I'm like, that feels intuitively like a dude job.
Yeah, go chop down something from the outside and bring it inside, and it's like big and heavy.
Right. I mean, believe
That was a man thing.
But even if you just go buy it from the tree lot, I have always associated that with being like a dad chore.
Yeah.
Again,
That's what TV says.
that's what TV says.
Yeah.
But apparently not in Ethel's household.
What does he do?
And when he asks her about the tree, she just says, "The tree?" She looked at him blankly, as if it were a strange Scandinavian custom that hadn't hit Ireland.
Tree?
And so he tells one of the sons to go get the tree.
Good. Delegation.
And then her younger son asks if the mince pies are done yet.
No, bitch.
And it says she smiles at him dreamily and goes, "Done?" And he says, "Made, like cooked, in tins, like always." And she just goes, "I'm sure the shops are full of them."
Hell yeah. I was worried if she just kept acting confused. I was like, hold on, girl. They're going to lock you up. They're going to have you committed.
There is, put a very small pin in that thought for later.
Okay.
No, she's fine.
Okay.
This is not the time for unnecessary tension. She does not get locked up or anything,
Okay.
but there's a reference to the possibility of it later.
Okay.
The next day, her daughter finally not just realizes, but announces to the rest of the family that there's no turkey in the freezer. And what's more, one has not been ordered.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And Ethel, sitting in front of the television, just turns the volume up.
Classic.
So they've pieced together that something is wrong, and it says, "They came to her very formally. They reminded her of a trade union delegation, walking up the steps to arbitration, or like people delivering a letter of protest at an embassy. This year it's going to be different, Ethel." Her husband's voice was gruff at the awkward, unfamiliar words. "We realize that we haven't been doing our fair share. No, don't deny it. We've all discussed it this year, and you'll find that it will be different." "We'll do all the washing up after Christmas dinner," Sean said. "And clear away all the wrapping paper," added Brian. "And I'll ice the cake when you've made it. I mean, after the almond icing," Teresa said. She looked at them all, one by one, with a pleasant smile, as she always had. And it says that she says that would be very nice. And she's sort of remotely realizing that what they want, now that they have
Acknowledged it,
is for her to jump up and grab an apron and start running around, doing all of the things. But she just doesn't have the energy.
No. I mean, you know what? I'm glad they at least realized it. And they weren't just like, what's going on with Mom? It's so weird, They at least caught the hint.
They have caught something.
Uh-oh.
And her husband doubles down by saying, it's not just words. We have very concrete plans, and they're beginning tomorrow. And so they tell her not to come in the kitchen. They're going to go finalize their discussions. And they all troop back into the kitchen to plan and leave her in front of the television. And she lies back in her chair and thinks to herself that she hadn't wanted to punish them, to withhold affection, to sulk her way into getting a bit more help. It was no carefully planned victory, no cunning ploy. They were trying so hard to make up for the years of not noticing. That was all it was. Simply not noticing how hard she worked. It just hadn't dawned on them how unequal was the situation where 5 adults left the house in the morning to go to work, and 1 adult kept the house running as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that she could give up her job and be a full-time housewife, But if she did that, they would have to ask the kids for room and board.
Yeah.
And the kids are supposed to be saving up for deposits for their own place.
Yeah.
And she can't ask her children to pay their own way. But if she doesn't do that, then she has to keep her job.
Yeah.
But in good mom fashion, she concludes that it was her own fault that they hadn't seen how hard she worked and how tired she was, or hadn't seen until now. But now they knew, God bless them.
That's kind of shit you say during a job interview when you're like, what's your best quality? What's your worst quality? And you're like, I'm just too hard of a worker. I just do too much,
Yeah.
I make it look so easy, though.
I just don't, I don't make sure that people acknowledge everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, I do the job of 5 adults. And no one even notices because I do it so well. Mm.
And so even though she has not sort of thrown this tantrum, well, no, not even she wasn't throwing a tantrum.
No.
She just didn't.
Yeah.
And now you can tell she's feeling a little guilty.
Sure.
Around the edges.
Yeah.
But she just doesn't have the energy. She just doesn't want to do it.
No.
And so the next morning, when they are all at breakfast, the breakfast that she made,
yeah,
before they all go to their jobs,
yeah,
and to the university,
yeah,
they ask her what time she'll be home from work. And there's a note where she's like, the same time I'm always home from work.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, right.
Like, and what time would that be?
Very much that energy. And she's just like, Jesus Christ. No, she's probably not taking the Lord's name in vain.
Well,
depends.
You never know.
And they're like, okay, well, can you make it an hour later? Like, come home an hour later than usual, and we're going to have, like, done things.
Okay.
And there's an almost slip up where one of her sons is like, you could always go to the supermarket. And she's like, did you want me to do the shopping? And they're like, no. No, I promise.
Ooh, dangerous.
So she gets very excited because this means that she can go out for a drink with her friend Maeve from work.
Aw.
And Maeve is younger and doesn't have a husband or children.
Oh.
And also consistently tells Ethel that she's a doormat that her husband and children are walking all over.
Well, Maeve has a point.
Maeve does have a point.
Yeah.
So they make this arrangement. Everyone goes off to work and to school. And she noticed that the new regime hadn't involved clearing away their breakfast dishes.
Funny.
But Ethel told herself it would be curmudgeonly to complain about clearing away 5 cups and saucers and plates and cornflake bowls and washing them and drying them. She wanted to leave the kitchen perfect for them and all that they were going to do. She wondered that they hadn't taken out the cookery books. She would leave them in a conspicuous place, together with all those cookery articles she had cut from the paper and clipped together with a big clothes peg. But she must stop fussing. She'd be late for work.
I don't feel good about this.
When she invites her coworker to a drink, Maeve's first reaction is, did they all fly off to the Bahamas without you or something?
Well, Maeve's on the nose.
But Ethel is excited.
Good.
Says she hugged her secret to herself. Her family, who were going to do everything. Things were exciting at the office. They were all going to get new office furniture in the new year.
Ooh.
The old stuff was being sold off at ridiculous prices. Ethel wondered if Sean would like the computer table, or if Brian would like the small desk. Nothing would be too good for them this year.
Mm.
With the unaccustomed buzz of 2 hot whiskeys to light her home, Ethel came up the path and lit herself in the door. I'm back, she called. May I come into the kitchen? They were standing there, sheepish and eager. Now, would you like to make any guesses as to what is about to happen? What is in the kitchen?
Just shopping bags full of shit they got from the grocery store, but haven't taken out or cooked or prepared or anything.
Okay, that's a good guess.
I don't know, that or fast food or I don't know.
All right.
Okay.
Her heart was full for them. While she had been out drinking whiskey with lemon and cloves in it, stretching her legs and talking with Maeve, they had been slaving away. Poor Maeve had to go back to her empty flat, while lucky Ethel had this family who had promised her that things would be different this year.
Yeah.
They looked at her, all of them, waiting for her reaction. They wanted her to love it, whatever they had done. She hoped they had found the candied peel. It was in one of those cartons without much identification on it. But even if they hadn't, she'd say nothing. She looked around the kitchen. There was no sign of anything baked or blended or stirred or mixed or prepared. And still they looked at her, eager and full of anticipation. She followed their eyes. A large and awkward-looking television set took up the only shelf of workspace that had any length or breadth in it.
Okay.
An indoor aerial rose from it perilously, meaning that the shelves behind it couldn't be reached. They stood back, so she could view the full splendor of it. Sean turned it on with a flourish, like a ringmaster at a circus.
Oh my God.
"Ta-da!" he cried. "I told you this Christmas was going to be different," Ethel's husband beamed at her. From now on, she could look at television as well as the rest of them.
No!
She'd be as informed and catch up on things and not be left out just because she had to be in the kitchen.
Oh my God.
All around her they stood, a circle of goodwill waiting to share in her delight. From very far away, she heard their voices. Years of hiding her disappointment stood to Ethel at this moment. The muscles of her face sprang into action.
No.
The mouth into an ooh of delight, the eyes into surprise and excitement. The hands even clasped themselves automatically. With the practiced steps of a dancer, she made the movements that they expected. Her hand went out like an automaton to stroke the hideous, misshapen television that took up most of her kitchen.
Oh my God. So their reasoning is like, oh, she's sitting down watching TV because she's missing what's going on TV. Otherwise, she'd be in the kitchen.
I think that is part of it, yes.
Yeah.
Like, wow, mom's suddenly really into TV.
Yeah.
Not resting.
Yeah. Ugh. This is a bummer.
So they all troop back into the living room.
No, they just leave? Yes. They're like, all right, get to it.
She takes off her coat. She puts on her apron.
No.
She edges around the television set while mentally rearranging every shelf and bit of storage that she had.
That's so annoying. As someone who's been like organizing my house a lot lately, that's
Can you
so
imagine?
Annoying. Oh my God.
Like and this is one of the things I like about this story is it's insulting on every possible level because they have now also made the kitchen worse.
Yeah.
They've made the kitchen worse.
Yeah, and like smaller and unusable.
And it says, she felt curiously apart from everything. And in her head, she kept hearing their voices, saying that this Christmas was going to be different. They were right.
Yeah.
It felt different. But surely it couldn't be on account of this crass gift, a sign that they wanted her forever chained to the kitchen, cooking for them and cleaning up after them. As she pricked the sausages and peeled the potatoes, it became clear to her. They had done something for her for the very first time. Not something she wanted, but something. And why? Because she had sulked. Ethel hadn't intended to sulk, but that's exactly what it had been. What other women had been doing for years. Women who had pouted and complained and demanded to be appreciated. By refusing to begin the preparations for Christmas, she had drawn a response from them. Now, what more could be done? It was the beginning. She would have to go slowly, of course.
Yes.
A lifetime of being a drudge could not be turned around instantly. If, as a worm, she was seen to turn too much, it might be thought to be her nerves, her time of life,
Yeah.
a case for a nice chat with some kind, white-coated person prescribing tranquilizers.
There you go. Yeah.
No instant withdrawal of services. It would be done very slowly.
Good.
She looked at them all, settled inside around the flat-screen television, satisfied that the right thing had been done and that supper would be ready soon. They had no idea just how different things were indeed going to be from now on.
Good.
The end.
Is that the end?
Yeah.
All right.
It's a little story,
It is, yeah.
but poor fucking Ethel.
I know. I'm like, just go on vacation. Go on holiday with Mare or something. Just go.
Have an affair with Mare,
Yeah.
honestly, and not to be too English majory about it.
Do it.
But one of the things that I found really, really interesting about this story is specifically that it hinged on a television.
Okay.
That it wasn't like a different stupid gift.
Yeah.
Because it also could have been a different stupid gift.
Sure.
But the television, of all in the context of the story, is just so fucking cutting.
Yeah.
It hurts on so many levels.
It's just so stupid.
Yes, it is. But it also, I feel like in microcosm, is kind of this thing that we have been doing to overburdened sort of subsets of the population ever since, where it's like, oh my God, you're doing too much and you're tired of it. Have you considered a shiny distraction machine?
Yeah.
Instead?
Yeah.
There's that quote about how, like, when we enabled women to go out of the home, but we didn't do anything about the expectations for them within the home, we didn't free them, we just gave them two burdens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it feels like this is a thing that we have just never stopped pounding our head against. And
No.
now it's like, oh my gosh, you're a working mom who's barely holding it together. Would you like an app where Channing Tatum reads you affirmations?
I mean, yeah.
And you're like, that's not really making a material difference to my life. And they're like, but it's Channing Tatum. He's reading affirmations. He's shirtless.
Do you want me to turn the volume up on the Hallmark Channel? I mean, this is just very relatable to, I mean, obviously, I think Maeve Binche, I just love that name. That's such a great name. I hope I'm not being insulting to the Irish people.
No, I think it's okay to say it's a great name.
It's just
It's a great name.
Maeve Binche. I just want to keep saying it.
Her husband was a children's book writer. Sounds like they had a lovely life. Her husband was Gordon Snell.
Well, that's a great name as well.
Yeah.
Snell.
Yeah.
Snell and Binchy.
The Snell-Binchy household.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it is. Sounds like a children's book.
It does. What was I saying? Even though like Maeve Binche obviously was focusing on like a very gender dynamic, and you know, especially in the 90s, thinking about, I suppose that would be third wave feminism. I still find the dynamic like really relatable to like kind of everything today. Like
Yes.
everything today feels like the logical extension of like kind of the end point of like where that gets you, where it's just like nothing is changing, nothing is fixed. Here's just more stuff, like more
distractions.
more distraction stuff, like more.
Now you
know.
can have an iPad in the kitchen with you.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, you bring up that this is very clearly like a gender dynamic story. And it is, but I do find it really interesting that her daughter is not any more useful than the rest of them.
No.
And it's I think this story is less concerned in a lot of ways with the fact that Ethel is a woman than it is simply with the fact that Ethel is the designated person that her family are lazily exploiting.
She's Charlie.
And that is because she's a woman.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, because we have the two other characters in the story who are women, are her daughter, who is just as oblivious.
No, that's a really good point. That's very true.
And her co-worker, who seems to be having a lovely time.
Yeah. Way to go, Mare. She's kind of like caught in this old dynamic.
Yeah, she's being treated like a domestic.
Yeah.
She's being treated like staff.
Yeah.
And I just think it's very interesting because it is because she's a woman, but this is not a story to me about her womanhood
Mm-hmm.
or womanness.
No.
there's no implication anywhere that she's uniquely suited to this because of her, feminine nurturing instincts.
Yeah.
She just got stuck with the job and is still doing it because no one else is even acknowledging that it's a job.
Well, and like her reaction too is really interesting, where she like shows no disappointment. It's just like her automatic reaction, like before she can even help it, is to just be like, oh, yay, it's an avocado. Thanks, And then, but then the ending of the story, by the ending, I guess she has turned around. She's like, this will not stand.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very interesting, neat little, not neat. It's a very interesting, short little story but there's a lot in there, actually. This is my problem with short stories. Is that I am dumb and they seem simple, but they're not. And all I can do is just sit there and be like, oh yeah, wow.
I think this is a story that is kind of quietly about a lot of different people who get pushed into caretaking roles, both professionally and interpersonally, where they are just like never acknowledged.
Yeah.
And only noticed if they withhold the services that they are expected to provide.
Yeah, caretaking, it's so undervalued and underpaid and undervalued, under-recognized, but it's so essential.
Yeah.
And
I think, like, if you are a part of a group, any group, friend group, book club, workplace, if you have more than like 3 humans who are attempting to do things in any kind of an organized way, somewhere in that group is an Ethel.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that group is an Ethel that is just being completely unacknowledged, who is bending themselves over backwards, who is probably dangerously close to burnout.
Yeah.
And no one will notice that Ethel is doing what Ethel does until Ethel stops.
Yeah.
We all have Ethels in our lives. Every single one of us. And there's this really, I couldn't read the whole story verbatim, obviously, but there's this really sad little side note about how her, like, no one in this family ever gives her gifts.
Oh.
Like, her husband gives her cash to go buy herself something.
Well.
And then at Christmas, they usually buy her something that they need for the house.
Yeah. Oh.
Last year, she got an electric can opener. And it's that thing too, right? Like, the Ethels only ever get things that they need to be better at being Ethel.
Yeah.
And like, this dynamic happens in workplaces too. I think women are especially vulnerable to being pushed into that position. I think marginalized people broadly are more vulnerable to being pushed into being Ethels.
Absolutely.
But it is not exclusive to nuclear families, and it is not exclusive to women.
Yeah, and it's interesting to bring it. I realize you just like broadened, kind of zoomed out and broadened the lens, but to bring it back to like the family for a second, there is something, I've thought about this a lot with my own family dynamic, in that, the fact that her children and even like the daughter, who's also a woman, don't notice and just go along with it. So like, to reveal a little something about like myself and my family dynamic is that, my mom does kind of, I said that good New England work ethic, like she does kind of do all of it and like ask nothing in return. And in a way, I hope this isn't too revealing, in a way, like we were kind of taught to accept that. And it was, I don't know like how, if I'm expressing this well, but just like, we were like made to work and do chores and contribute and everything as well. But it was part of growing up, was realizing like, oh, she doesn't have to do all this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, and I think in the story, like, one of the subtexts of the story is that Ethel was never taught how to do anything but insist. Right? Like, this, Ethel's realization is like, oh, I don't have to just take all of this on myself, and then if anyone asks, be like, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm having the best time.
Yeah. I relate to both her and her kids because I've like seen that dynamic play out, and it's, as a kid, you are kind of taught to like take everything, but then watching your parent lead by example, then once you grow up, then you're like, now it is my turn to do everything. and ask nothing in return. And, you know, you've been my friend for a while. You've seen, it is not always intrinsic to learn to accept help and delegate and divide things equally and, you know, tear down hierarchy and everything. You know, it's just like, I think a lot of people perhaps might have been raised this way.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people are. And like, how are you going to question it if you don't have a model for it, right? If all you've ever seen is this pattern of behavior being repeated over and over again, it's going to take a lot of existential work to be like, oh, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things to me about her having her little single friend.
Yeah.
Who is so excited to take her out for a drink. Like, you can tell that she has asked before, and that Ethel always turns her down because she has to get home and make dinner, you know? So this is like a treat.
Cute.
But I also think that, like, there's an especially interesting question in this story and in a general sense around holidays specifically.
Yeah.
There's a sort of unstated assumption that, like, the magical things are only magical if you don't do the legwork for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, especially with Christmas, where it's all about surprising the children and, you know, Santa comes and how did all this get here? You know, like keeping it magical for the kids.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like the sort of, you know, as capitalism morphs into an ever larger and more frightening monster, it feels like there is more pressure than ever to hide all of the labor that goes into holidays.
Oh, yeah, especially with social media and shit.
And there is less help than there has ever been. Because...
And everything's more expensive.
All of our concepts around what makes like a magical holiday come from people who had live-in servants.
Yeah. Household staff.
And I think it takes like real psychological effort to be able to make the magic and enjoy it.
Both. Like,
at the same time.
Both. Yeah.
To participate in the decorating and the cooking and all of the little bits that make for a beautiful holiday without resenting it. And then to enjoy it at the end as purely as you would have as if it had genuinely manifested through magic.
Yeah.
I think that's a very particular skill that we aren't really taught.
No.
And I think it's maybe one that we could all try to cultivate. It's okay, actually, and not cringy to, like, make something magical for yourself.
Yeah.
And then enjoy it. You can do that. You're allowed.
Well, and also, I mean, something, you know, that I work on a lot is, like, that I've had to unlearn and learn new things for a long time is, like, asking for help, you know, dividing the labor, like making it a group effort, you know, admitting my limits and setting boundaries and, you know, asking other people what their limits and boundaries are. All of this, like, you know, therapy speak, but it's like so true. And I think that ties into also making magic for yourself and allowing yourself to enjoy it. It's all just these little subtle ways of resisting the machine of capitalism. You know, like holiday edition.
Well, because, like, to bring it back to the story, Ethel's kids and her husband, but especially her kids, are really missing out on something by being as emotionally lazy as they're being, because
they're just consuming, they're not participating.
They could be learning, right?
Yeah.
Remember, she gets all the cookery books out. She's hoping they found the candied peel. Like, they could be learning all of these things that their mother has been doing for their entire lives. They could be learning how to do it for themselves, and they could be bearing witness to all of the love that she had been putting into it, right?
Yeah.
The story explicitly says that she used to love feeding them. It meant something to her. And the meaning has just been sapped from it by their total indifference.
Yeah. Well, and that comes back to the television and, like, why the television is so symbolic, because it's just passive consumption of things being fed to you rather than taking part in the making of them.
Yeah.
you know, and sharing that time together and that activity together and like thinking about what you're consuming and being a part of what you're consuming rather than just, you know, more.
Yeah.
Give me more. Click the button. Give me more.
And to the point that the story makes about the big meal being what everyone has kind of agreed Christmas is about.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, it is, sure, but is it? You know, there can be more to holiday together time. It doesn't have to just
Yeah.
be the consuming part.
Yeah.
You can play games. You can have other traditions where you talk to each other.
Well, yeah, and one thing that my mind keeps coming back to also is just that, like, how no one really wins in this. Like, the end is, like, kind of a fun, like, a funny moment and, like, made me giggle if you think about it as, like, a punchline. But if you think about it as a little bit deeper than that, it's really sad.
Yeah.
It's just, like, disconnection and, like, resorting to, like, manipulating each other and increasing the distance between you and your family rather than, like, communicating about it. And you know what I mean? It's just sad.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully this is Ethel's first step to finding herself, getting a late and light divorce,
Yeah.
and
What's up, Mayor?
running off, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
She'll send them postcards every once in a while from somewhere warm.
Yeah.
She'll relearn her love of cooking
How Ethel got her groove back.
by making ceviche
Ooh.
for her lover on a beach.
España.
The moral of the story is there's probably an Ethel in your life. Be kind to them.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledge them. Give them a break.
Yeah. We got some dynamics to examine and unlearn over here.
Oh, look at you with the dynamics.
Look at, oh, she's got the dynamics again.
Well, before we get back to ghost stories.
I did think this was going to be a ghost story, and I kept waiting for the ghost. And about 75, I told you I'm not smart. About 75% of the way through, I was like, I don't think there's going to be ghosts in this one. I don't really see how they're going to fit it.
The ghost was the patriarchy.
Ooh.
But this is just a little break to acknowledge those of us who are still in the land of the living. And
There's still time to thank an Ethel.
there's still, yes. It's never too late to thank an Ethel.
Yeah.
Do it before a series of ghosts come to you late in the night and lecture you about OSHA regulations before realizing that they went to the wrong person and were supposed to lecture you about being kind to the Ethel in your life.
I mean, yeah, the 3 warning ghosts department is, you know, really in a state of disarray and turnover this year. It's underfunded, you know, so you can't rely on them.
Yeah.
2024.
The ghost of OSHA regulations passed is a real bummer, by the way.
It's just a guy. Just a guy named Ted with a binder.
All right, Leigh, any final festive thoughts?
I'm grateful for my friends. Isn't that what it's all about?
It is what it's all about.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
You got this.
Did you want me to say something different?
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
You do whatever you want, baby.
Whew. Okay.
The world is your oyster.
I'm a vegetarian.
All right, that's enough.
What about you? What do you think?
I think I said what I
You said, but that's what this whole podcast is, isn't it?
pretty much.
Okay.
That's kind of the idea.
We know what you think. We got it.
No one has ever had an opportunity to miss it. Well, thank you, Leigh, for being here with me today.
Sorry about it. Did I do a good job? Thank you for having me. I have fun.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Former gifted kids and praise kinks. It's a whole thing. You did a great job, baby.
I didn't mean.
Is that what you want to hear?
No. This
It-
isn't a sex thing. It's not a sex thing.
Kinks don't have to be purely sex things. You did a great
I know
job.
when I'm not making sense. That's all I'm saying. I know when my thought process is not linear.
All right. Thank all of you for being with us today. And in case any of you have praise kinks, you are also doing a very good job.
You're all good girls.
You're all good girls, boys, theys, and thems.
Yeah.
And we're proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
And, as always, if you can, this week, this month, this pay period, consider supporting a living author, because they could really use the love. And books make great holiday gifts.
They do. From independent bookstores,
Yes.
especially. Those carry the most Christmas spirit of all.
Bye.
Bye.
Didn't Read It was created, written, researched, and recorded by me, Grace Todd. Maddie Wood is our co-producer and social media maven. Editing by Tally, a true podcasting professional, and Grace Todd. Our theme song is Books 2.0, written, performed, and recorded by William Albritton. Special thanks to Black Iris Social Club in Richmond, Virginia. Reach out to us with questions, concerns, or academic scrutiny at didntreaditpod@gmail.com.